Marking the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice this year, we take a thorough look at trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, and how the three-way partnership works to manage the situation on the Korean Peninsula. With Stephen Noerper, President of Asia Dialogue this morning. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Seoul-Washington alliance has long been considered pivotal, right? Now, how is trilateral cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo so crucial?
Well, it's especially crucial at this time. We've just seen North Korea fire its intercontinental ballistic missile with marked improvements, the Hwasong-18. So certainly there will be talk among them about that and the response. And of course, there are broader geostrategic issues of concern for all three, to include China, the issues around the Taiwan Strait, as well as Russia in Ukraine. And so more and more, the three are finding themselves, by way of geopolitics and geosecurity, bound together to try to construct constructive responses. And of course, with the economies the way they are, all three really need one another for supply chain diversity and for boost, especially as growth has slowed.
That is right. So North Korea's military threats are not just provocations to the Korean Peninsula, but it's a threat to the whole geopolitical scene. And the three sides need each other at the moment to boost their economic competence in the world.
That's exactly right. And the nuclear threat is one that undermines not only regional security, but also the non-proliferation regime. And of course, the economic factors coming out of the pandemic are tremendous. And so trying to find ways to stimulate growth, to diversify supply chains, and to create jobs, especially for young Koreans, young Americans, and young Japanese, will be paramount on these national leaders' minds.
Right. And the three leaders of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan are set to meet again, this time at Camp David, reportedly on August 18th. Now, how is this upcoming meetup so meaningful in terms of deterring North Korean threats?
Well, it's significant because this last year there was a marked number, some 52 meetings, either digitally or in person among the leaders of Japan, the United States, and Korea. This is a very important sit-down relative to what we've just seen by way of the Hwasong-18 test, relative to concerns about China and Russia. And of course, there's symbolic importance with Camp David, and it's a place that has afforded a great diplomatic history and importance to see the United States president alongside of President Hyun and Prime Minister Kishida together to talk about coordination and cooperation forward.
Right, we're speaking of these escalating military ambitions by the regime. Then the trilateral summit follows the official launch of the nuclear consultative group between South Korea and the U.S. that officially kicked off, right? Now, will there be any way for maybe Japan to get involved and participate in the group, in any chance?
Most likely. Certainly it's a process that was started, as we've seen, between the United States and South Korea. It is primarily aimed at sharing information on coordination, but bringing Japan in is important, especially given its intelligence and monitoring capabilities. And the real hope is that there'll be better real-time live tracking of DPRK missile tests among South Korea, Japan, and the United States. That's the type of operational capability much needed. I'd also urge them to consider issues like nuclear safety, meaning that with all these tests, with the increase, we have an increase of risk in the region. And so we should be looking at ways to find controls and find ways to lower the level of risk relative to these nuclear tests and relative to some sort of mishap or miscommunication, which could amplify the process in very dangerous ways.
Indeed. Now, in the meantime, there is also speculation that Japan could be separately reaching out to North Korea for talks, right? These are just speculations, but how likely is that scenario? I mean, what will happen if it is the case?
Well, it's unlikely that an actual meeting will take place. Prime Minister Kishida was foreign minister when there were some important meetings that took place and an agreement in 2014 that was essentially annulled in 2016. So it's been some years since the Japanese and the North Koreans have seen any progress, but it's an important domestic political issue for Japan because of the issue of abductees. And in 2002, 5 were returned. But Japan's concerned about 12 other individuals. And so for Kishida to do well, it helps in terms of how he shows in the lower parliament elections when those are called as head of the LDP after next September. So there's a domestic impetus to try to see some improvement and try to get some answers on the abductees. However, given the current state of hostilities, it's probably unlikely that he'll see much success in that regard, but an effort nonetheless.
All right, President Noerper, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Honolulu this morning.
Aloha, and thank you.